Hey wizards, how's it going? Just arrived at the Leaky Cauldron. Subscribe and turn on notifications to stay updated on everything happening here.
And remember, you can join the Leaky Cauldron for exclusive benefits. You get badges by your name, emojis for comments, and a thanks button to support others. That way, your comment stands out among the others. And today, I'm going to continue with the series scenes that are much better in the movies than in the books. I've already talked about Philosopher's Stone, Chamber of Secrets, and now it's time for Prisoner of Azkaban. And this one might seem easy, because the movie is really cool, but it was a bit difficult. Because the scenes I chose, which I think are the best in the movie, are also really good in the book. I mean, at least some of them. Some are definitely better in the movie. But I'm sure this video here won't get even half the engagement that the videos about things I hate, or the worst scenes got. Because, right? As I said, people prefer seeing us talk negatively, but when we say positive things, those videos aren't as successful. Anyway, the first scene I picked here, which I think is much better in the movie, is Guida turning into a balloon. In the book, it happens in a more or less similar way, but there's not such a detailed description of her turning into a balloon. It just says she swelled up, floated away, and Harry ran off. But she doesn't float out of the house in the book. She just stays floating there, on the ceiling. But come on.
In the movie, her scene is a masterpiece with lots of commotion. The soundtrack enhances the experience.
So, come on. Guida swelling up, Walter trying to hold her down, being lifted, her going up to the sky. And the soundtrack makes this scene really amazing. So, for me, it's much better in the movie. Not to mention when you understand how the scene was made. All of that happened with practical effects. It took hours and hours to shoot the scene.
Hours and hours of makeup. Doing the gradual makeup with that outfit.
So Guida would truly look like a balloon. So, this scene is a masterpiece. It's incredible in the movie. Much better than in the book. Much better. The second scene, which I think is much better in the Prisoner of Azkaban movie than in the book, is the entire night bus sequence. From the moment Harry calls the night bus to the moment he gets in. In the book, it's more of a conversation scene with the night bus details mostly in the background, right? The book's scene centers more on the conversation, with Harry asking about Sirius and Stan Shunpike explaining who he is. Anyway, there are some descriptions there, of course. It says that the bus was very fast, and so on. But in the movie, man, seeing the bus and watching that happen makes the scene so much better. The bus speeding up, Harry hitting his face, that crazy shaking. Do you get it? That little talking head, which is an addition from the movie, is really cool. That made the scene really great.
And Ernesto, super chill there, driving the bus like a madman. Stan Shunpike, also just hanging out there. And Harry, getting tossed around, holding on for dear life, doing everything he can to stay on his feet.
The bus squeezed between two others, barely fitting. Man, that's really cool. Really cool. So, for me, the scene in the movie is way better than in the book. Another scene that, for me, this one. Wow, this one. But it's way better than in the book. It's the scene where the Dementor arrives on the Hogwarts Express. In the book, it's a little confusing, you know? It's not that the scene itself is confusing, but it has a kind of confusing vibe. The lights go out, then Neville comes in, then he sits down, ends up sitting on Crookshanks, and then Ginny comes in. Ginny enters, and there's confusion. Hey, my foot stepped here. What's happening? Lupin is awake. Then Lupin lights up with a flame he creates with magic in his own hand, like this. And then the Dementor arrives, and Harry feels sick.
Is it a cool scene? It's a cool scene. Remember, look, just because I'm saying the movie version is better, it doesn't mean the book version is bad. That's not it.
It's just much better in the movie. You're crazy. The movie builds up the scene and creates a sense of horror. You know, like the train stopping, the window freezing, Ron freaking out with fear. Okay, it's even a little funny seeing Ron freaking out, but the window freezing, that effect, you know, that Dementor's hand opening the compartment like that. You're crazy, my friend. What a masterpiece. That scene in the movie is the creepiest thing, you know? That little hand, like opening there, right? It opens like this, the Dementor, putting its hand like this. Man. It's a great scene.
it turned out much better.
Since Lupin is asleep when Harry is attacked, it creates a sense of agony. In the book, he's already awake and saves Harry, but in the movie, he wakes up and helps Harry. This difference intensifies the agony.
So, for me, this scene, this whole set, makes this scene much better in the movie. And right after, right in sequence, we already have the scene that, for me, is the best, which is the opening of the school year.
In the book, how does it happen? Harry arrives and goes to the hospital wing because Lupin sent an owl. He sent an owl ahead to tell them Harry was sick from the Dementor. He goes to the hospital wing, insists he's fine, asks to leave, is released, but they lose there. The sorting and start of year speech, but unlike the movie, it opens with an already iconic scene. When Harry looks out the Hogwarts Express window, his reflection appears, and the music begins. And the carriage is going towards Hogwarts. That already made up for it. Man, that soundtrack, which is the only sung track in Harry Potter, which is Double Trouble.
It's really good. It's really good. It's a very, very good soundtrack. So, it makes the scene like that. The frog choir, the Hogwarts choir there with the frogs, it's really wow like that.
I can't explain how good it is or why I think it's so much better. But that combination right there.
And then there's Dumbledore's speech and the phrase he says, right?
Remember that happiness can be found even in the darkest of times. He blows out the candle, and if the person turns on the light, he relights it. That's not in the book. So, it's much better. It's much better than Harry going to the hospital wing saying everything was fine and all that.
And honestly, I much prefer the scene in the movie. It's much better.
This choir is awesome. This song is awesome. The little frog at the end there, really cool, man. That's crazy. Really good. Then at the end of this scene, Dumbledore is there talking. Then it shows an outside scene with the Dementor passing by. Where it passes, the flower freezes and dies. That's great cinema. That scene is really awesome. Really awesome. Way better than in the book. Way better. Really, really. And then there's a sequence after that scene where the students are there in the dormitory, right? The Gryffindor students, Harry, Ron, Neville, Dean, and Seamus, who are their classmates, right? From the same year. So they're there in the dormitory, and they're eating some candies that make animal sounds. And it's raining like the world is falling apart outside. Then it shows them having fun as the camera pulls back out the window, showing the scene from afar. This scene is better, since in the book Harry just arrives and goes to sleep, you know? So, that scene of them interacting, of them playing around, it's a very teenage and school-like environment.
So for me, it's much better. It's much better. It gives off that vibe, you know? When the camera pulls back like this and it's raining.
And that's when the Dementor appears, right? The scene pulls back and it's raining. I misspoke. I meant the earlier scene where the Dementor finishes by drawing the little flower, right?
It's actually after this moment here, in reality. So it's a sequence of scenes that are really close together, right? I ended up getting them mixed up. So for me, that makes this scene much better.
You know, than in the book. And here, this one, anyone who doesn't agree with me is completely crazy. Anyone who doesn't agree with me on this one is completely crazy. The scene where Harry flies on Buckbeak in the movie. It's not just that it's way better, it's a billion times better than the scene in the book. 1,000,000,000 to 0. Seriously. I like that in the book, Harry volunteers to help Hagrid in class, unlike in the movie.
In the movie, it's kind of by accident. Hagrid puts him there and he's like, hey, stop. And wow, I'm flying. It's wonderful.
I like the part where Harry volunteers more in the book, but I prefer Buckbeak's flight in the movie.
Because, man, in the book, he just takes a little spin, right there above the arena, above the barn where the hippogriffs are, and there are more than one hippogriff. It's not just Buckbeak. Then he takes off and lands immediately. I don't even need to explain why the movie scene is better, right? Harry flying on the hippogriff is something amazing. It's a beautiful scene. It's an emotional scene. Harry flying there, seeing Hogwarts passing by the lake. Then he opens his arms like this, and it's like, wow. It's like walking into an air-conditioned store on a hot day. That's how I imagine it feels.
No way, just kidding, man, Harry. Opening his arms like that and flying there, passing by the castle.
Wow, what a masterpiece. What a magnificent scene, man. What a magnificent scene. There's nothing like it.
That scene beat the one from the book. It beat it, that's just how it is.
The book scene isn't bad, but the movie's version is so good that the books feels insignificant.
And I also like the soundtrack. The soundtrack in that scene fits so well. It's so perfect. It matches so much that the scene becomes magnificent, you know?
It becomes magnificent. And then in Hogwarts Legacy, the game developers, they were sneaky. We know people like that scene, so let's put a similar scene here as a tribute.
And then, when there's the mission where we rescue the hippogriff with Nath Sionai, and we fly with the hippogriff, passing by the castle, passing by the lake, and the Hogwarts Express going by.
And then, man, there's a soundtrack that's not the same for obvious reasons, right? Because of copyright. You can't mix what's from the movie. The movie is the movie. The game is the game. The series is the series anyway. The soundtrack is very emotional. And during my live stream playing it, I got emotional too. For real, man, I got so emotional that I actually teared up, you know? Because what a scene, man. I think that was the closest I could get to experiencing it. Though it's still very different. But I think it was the closest possible to experiencing that. You know? It was incredible. It was incredible.
So that scene for me was much better than in the book.
Another scene, also much better this way than in the book, is the Boggart class. It has some similarities, right?
It happens in a way that's very similar to how it is in the book, but there are some differences that make all the difference.
These differences matter to me. They make a difference to me.
To improve the scene in the movie, like the spider transformation and Ron's Boggart. When he casts the ridiculous spell in the book, its legs vanish, which I don't think is that funny, but in the movie, when they put skates on it, damn, the whole thing looks way cooler.
And then, I think it already brings me a more nostalgic feeling, like a sticker album.
And the stickers in this album are wonderful. There's a special sticker of this roller skating spider, which for me is an aesthetic. The clown. Although the clown is very scary, the clown is even scarier than the snake itself. The scene's aesthetic is really good, so it makes it much better. Okay, but in the book, Harry doesn't encounter the Dementor there, right? The Boggart, Lupin doesn't let him face it. It doesn't even get to transform, if I'm not mistaken. And then, in the movie, it's different, but in the movie, for me, it's much better. It's much better. It has that whole aesthetic there. In the book, the Boggart turns into a glowing orb. The moon, right?
It doesn't really describe the moon in the movie. It's more like the moon just appears, right? So I think it's better in the movie.
This Boggart scene is much better, and so is this one. Anyone who disagrees is crazy, okay? Whoever disagreed is crazy. Disagreed is crazy. The scene where Harry and Lupin talk on the bridge.
Actually, in the book, it's not on the bridge. They're in Lupin's office. And in the book, it's not such an emotional conversation. It's more of an informative conversation for the reader.
We learn about the past there, and also see Snape bring a potion to Lupin, leaving Harry puzzled. So Snape gives the potion to Lupin, but we don't know its purpose until later in the book, right? But in the movie, the scene has a really strong emotional weight. And then, you know, that wonderful setting, that bridge, and the soundtrack that does all the work here. Window to the Past, which is like one of my favorite Harry Potter soundtracks. This soundtrack is exquisite. It sets the scene like this. It makes us feel a certain way. It makes me totally immersed in the scene, and I feel like I think Harry feels in that moment.
It's a feeling like, at the same time, he feels an emptiness. He also feels comfort when he hears about his parents.
That's the feeling I get from this scene. At the same time, it gives me a sense of emptiness. It also gives me comfort.
So, for me, it's much better. Much better, much better in the movie. Another scene for our list here, which I think is better because it's not that different between the movie and the book.
It's Hermione punching Draco in the face. In the book, she slaps him, right? She gives him an open-handed slap. The difference is that in the movie, it's a punch. And there's the whole setup with him spying and all that. In the book, it's different.
He's not there spying or waiting for Buckbeak's execution. He's just bragging after the sentence is given, right?
And Hermione goes and slaps him in the face. But in the movie, she punches him. And like, that represented all the desire I had in my life to punch Draco in the face. You know? Like, I always wanted to give Draco Malfoy a really good punch in the face.
And man, Hermione cleansed my soul with that scene, punching Draco, you know?
A slap can be more humiliating in some situations, but the punch, for me, was like a symbol. You know what I mean? Because in the books, especially in the books, but also in the movies, the urge to punch Draco was really strong for me. You know? That's why I think this scene works better in the movie. It's a direct punch to his mouth. Now, here's another scene. part of it isn't in the book.
After Sirius Black breaks into the school, the students go to the Great Hall so they can sleep there, so they can spend the night there, right?
There's a part that, man, I think is so fantastic. So fantastic. It's Dumbledore's line saying,
"But for now, let him sleep." Because in dreams, we enter a world that is entirely our own. Let him dive into the deepest ocean or float on the highest cloud.
The camera pans to the Great Hall's enchanted sky as a shooting star passes by.
I'm honestly getting goosebumps.
What a scene, my friend. What a scene. What a scene. This scene is wonderful. It's a masterpiece. And that line isn't in the book. That line isn't there. This thing of showing it's movie magic, man. There's no other way. It's the magic of cinema. That's why I get annoyed when people say that. The movies aren't terrible. They just have flaws.
Of course they do. The movie has its points to be criticized, obviously, like every movie in the history of mankind. But they're great. The movies are great. They're really good.
I have reservations about the Half-Blood Prince. It's my least favorite of them all.
But still, it's a really cool movie. It's a really good movie. So it kind of annoys me when people can't see the beauty in things, you know? Man, it's different. It's different from the book. But that doesn't mean it's bad, you know? I have my criticisms. I have the points that I criticize. The things I think are bad in the movies.
But just because it has those points doesn't mean the whole movie is bad and terrible, like a lot of people say. It's not. I think the magic that the movies convey is very unique, just like the books are also very unique. I really think that what Harry Potter fans need is to interpret each medium for what it is. You know?
Enjoy each medium for what it offers. The book is the book. The movie is the movie. The series is the series. Of course, as fans, we want to see things close to what's in the book, right? I wish the series included more from the book that wasn't in the movies, like Dumbledore's funeral.
It was something like, oh my god, I can't believe they cut Dumbledore's funeral. Of course, I really wanted to see it in the movie. Really, really. It made me really upset.
It doesn't bother me much now. I just watched the scene where they raise their wands. And if I look at it in the movie, just the movie, like it's the movie scene. And in the movie, that's what happens. For me, it's truly a beautiful scene. And there's the deleted scene, which has the whole soundtrack there, with a little choir that's really awesome. So, I think that's the secret. It's about consuming the media as it is, for what it sets out to be. You get it? Man, I'm so hungry while recording this. It's my third video today. Anyway, let's move to the next scene. This right here, my friend, is the one that splits your heart.
Because in the book, it's really good. In the book, it's really good. But in the book, what happens? It's more about explanation. It's more about dialogue. It's more about showing the past, explaining what's happening to the reader.
That's the scene at the Shrieking Shack where there's Sirius, where there's Lupin, where Snape arrives.
But, my friend, how can you compete when in the movie, we have Sirius Black totally freaking out screaming?
I've waited long enough. 12 years waiting in Azkaban. There's no competing with this. This scene is a masterpiece. One of my all-time favorites, my friend.
Of all the movies, you're crazy. You're crazy, Sirius talking.
This coward cut off his own finger so they'd think he was dead, and then turned into a rat. Come on, man. There's no way.
This scene is amazing. In the book, Sirius isn't yelling or acting crazy. He's just talking.
Like when Harry goes after him, that part in the movie is Lupin talking. Wait, Harry deserves to know. Then he suddenly starts talking. I've waited long enough. What? How does it happen? In the book, Harry is holding him there, manages to take the wand from his hand.
And then he goes and grabs Harry by the neck and tries to knock him out.
He says, I've waited long enough. It's not exactly that. Maybe more like, I've waited a long time. Or something similar.
But he doesn't yell. He grabs Harry by the neck so he can get the wand to kill Pettigrew, you know?
And then, the one who says in the book that the rat was actually Pettigrew and all that is Lupin.
He says, let me see your rat, Ron. In the book, Sirius responds when Ron says, if you want to kill Harry, you'll have to kill us too.
Which in the movie, they gave that line to Hermione. Sirius says to him, like, sit down. You're going to make your leg worse. And people are kind of confused, like, what do you mean sit down? Don't you want to kill us? Are you crazy? Still, the scene is great in the book, but in the movie, my friend, it just doesn't work. In the movie, And look, the scene is good with subtitles, but the dubbed scene, I'll tell you, the dubbed scene is better than the subtitled one. It's better, it's better, it's better. You can say I'm crazy, but it's better. The scene is better. Sirius Black's voice actor, my friend.
I've waited long enough. 12 years of waiting in Azkaban.
He conveyed all the intensity, all the emotion.
The voice really matches Gary Oldman well. In English, the original language, it's excellent.
It conveys the emotion of the scene, obviously, but the dubbed version still conveys emotion.
In some cases, the dubbing loses a bit of the emotion. In some cases.
Because Brazilian dubbing is one of the best in the world. It's incredible what our voice actors do. I'm a huge fan of Brazilian dubbing, really.
It's just that, in some cases, and this isn't the fault of Brazilian dubbing, but of the specific voice actor who's doing it, right? It doesn't turn out that well. But this scene, it's great with subtitles, but dubbed, it's even better. I'm not sure if my technical perspective is being overshadowed by nostalgia, which is possible.
But man, I just think it's amazing. This scene in the movie is amazing. Way better for me than the scene in the book.
There, feeling conflicted. The book reveals the Marauder's past, which the movie left out, right? It's not about the scene's context or content, but how certain things are executed. That makes it better for me in the movie. Did you get what I'm saying? No? And then another scene there, also in this sequence, that for me is really good, is the scene with Sirius and Harry. Outside there, right? Already on Hogwarts grounds, they look at the castle, and Sirius says, "It's beautiful, isn't it? I'll never forget my first time walking through those doors. It'll be good to walk in again as a free man." But he never entered as a free man because he was killed, you know? Hold on, you hit a sensitive spot for me here, okay? Man, what a scene, what a scene, what a scene, what a scene, what a scene. There's no way. That scene in the movie, seeing it there in the movie, it's so much better. It's so much better, so much better, so much better, so much better. Even so, wow, so much. Because then Sirius says, right? I'll understand if you want to keep living with your uncles and all, right? Sirius basically invites Harry to live with him. It's way better in the movie. And what about when Lupin turns into a werewolf? I have nothing to add. The movie handles that scene much better than the book, even though the book describes the transformation in detail. That's another example of cinema's magic.
Practical effects, man. The nail growing, practical effect, the foot growing, practical effect, the face transforming. That's makeup, my friend. Done frame by frame.
Did you get it? Spent hours making the werewolf, but it's just someone in a suit. Did you figure it out? No way. It's obvious. You can't compare, because in the book, you don't need practical effects, because in the book, we just read and imagine.
But in the movie, that makes the scene, for me, it really helps make the scene much better, you know? It's better than the book scene, which only has a description and leaves us to imagine it. But man, you see the action unfold with the soundtrack and effects. Of course, the practical effect and also the computer effect on top, making it real to your eyes, for me, makes the scene much better.
But it's even unfair for us to compare, just in that sense, right? For me, it's better because the scene conveys more emotion, and it conveys more emotion precisely because of all the resources that cinema offers. The visuals and soundtrack are things a book doesn't give you, you know?
Is it unfair to compare them that way? Yes, because one conveys more emotion.
I'll say it again. Why is the scene better for me? Because it conveys more emotion. Why does it convey more emotion? Because of all these technical elements that the magic of cinema provides. But anyway, it's better. I think it's better. And that's it, period. I think it's better. Don't you think it's better? You think it doesn't make sense? Huh? That's your problem. And Sirius and Lupin, transformed as well. Really going at it, an honest exchange of fangs. Lupin, transformed into a werewolf. And Sirius, transformed into a dog. Look, beating each other up, going at it hard. I really like this scene in the movie. Because another thing, in the book, it's not described in full detail there. It says, oh, they exchanged blows, bit each other and stuff like that, and bam! But in the movie, we actually see the scene happening. The two of them fighting, hitting each other right there. Man, that scene is really crazy. It's really crazy. So for me, it brings more emotion in the movie. For me, it's better in the movie. Another scene, this one actually doesn't even exist, okay? In the book, it doesn't even exist. So I don't know if we're going to talk about it here, but for me, it counts.
It's the scene where Buckbeak saves Harry and Hermione from Lupin after they go back in time, and Hermione lures Lupin with a howl.
That doesn't happen in the book. They're hiding in Hagrid's hut in the book. But Buckbeak spreads his wings, stands, and pecks him, right? On Lupin, like, get out of here, kid. He does it right here, right? Like this. A little peck like this. Get out of here, kid.
It's awesome. This scene is awesome, awesome, awesome.
The hippogriff is an imposing, beautiful creature, making the scene visually stunning. Now, this scene here is another one, and if you disagree with me, my friend, I'll say, you're crazy, man. Harry conjuring the Patronus to save himself and Sirius there, after going back in time. In the book, he comes out of Hagrid's hut.
He tells Hermione, I won't interfere, but we need to wait for the right moment.
I need to see the right moment to save Sirius, to get Sirius out of there, because of the Dementors. Hermione says, okay, go ahead, but don't get involved. Harry goes and keeps watching. There's a tense moment. His father, or who he believed was his father, could appear at any moment, and then he gets closer, runs over to the edge of the lake, and hides behind a bush. And he stays hidden behind that little bush there. And then, in the book, it says, oh, then he realized it wasn't his father, it was him who conjured it.
He goes there and conjures the Patronus, like Expecto Patronum. He conjures the Patronus already in the form of the stag, which gallops across the Black Lake and scares off the Dementors with its head, using its antlers to drive the Dementors far away.
But in the movie, my friend, all the emotion is right there. What really shows Harry's feelings is Harry saying, man, what's going on? Like, where's the person who saved me? Where's my dad? Isn't that my dad over there? Where is he? Is it not going to happen? Is it not going to happen? Wow, I have to do something. And he goes there and does it. No, it's kind of like he realizes it. Later, he explains it, right? Ah, I had the feeling that I knew I could do it because I had already done it. He explains that in the movie, right? The book explains immediately. It wasn't his father. It was him. He goes and conjures because he knows he can. In the movie, I feel like I have to act, so he goes there, bam, and conjures. The way he conjures the Patronus and his shout, Daniel Radcliffe did an excellent job. I have some criticisms of his acting at times,
Especially in Prisoner of Azkaban, that he was their friend, seen as really bad.
but here he nailed it, okay? Here, he nailed it, ran to the edge of the lake and Expecto Patronum. And then Man, that soundtrack. Look, I've got goosebumps, it's crazy. Then the soundtrack, and the Patronus, and bam! Then man, that wave, that field, like blum. And then the cinema. They did a great job with that scene. For me, it's way better in the movie, way better in the movie. It really conveys the emotion of it, you know? It gets across, you're like, let's go, I'm alive, man. That's what the scenes convey, you know? Come on, Harry, you can do it, man. Come on. That's what, for me, this scene conveys, you know? So, for me, it's way better.
It's itching my eye here. It's just that this light is shining right in my eye, which bothers me. Another scene. This one is also very different from what's in the book. Because in the book, they go to save Sirius, right?
They join Buckbeak at Professor Flitwick's window, unlock it with Alohomora, and Sirius arrives, mounts Buckbeak, and escapes. But, man, in the movie, Hermione shows up with fire in her eyes, right? She hits it with a bombarda and blows up the cell. Sirius looks at her. This scene is awesome.
I think she's better in the movie, because she shows more emotion again.
Everything here for me is interconnected, directly linked to the emotion the scene makes me feel.
And the technical aspects and all the aspects of, like, how the scene connects with the situation.
Hermione arriving and blowing things up with a lot of adrenaline right there. It's like, come on, things are crazy, let's go. Let's blow it up and get out of here, boom. You know, that scene is better than in the book for me. They go to the window and save him, though it's rushed, Sirius. Let's go. Quick, like, there's that tension, but I think it doesn't even compare to the way the movie showed it, you know?
Explosions, rocks falling, the gate opening. Man, that scene is incredible.
I want the series to show the scene like it is in the book. Since we already have the movie version, I'm curious how they'll do it. This scene is much better. It's where Sirius says goodbye to Harry. What happens? They skip the courtyard, and Sirius says, I'll never be able to thank you. You really are your father's son. And then Harry says, go, get out of here. You know, like, man, my brother, get out of here. You know, take off, fly away on that hippogriff, and that's it. And then Sirius flies off on the hippogriff and leaves.
In the movie, there's that wonderful scene where they pause in the courtyard and Harry says he wants to go with him.
Man, Sirius says that beautiful line about how Harry could always find the people he loved. They said they'd never leave him, always staying in Harry's heart. Then he touches Harry's chest like this. What a beautiful scene. He tells Hermione she's the smartest witch of her age.
And then he takes off like this with the hippogriff. Bam! He flies off into the night like that.
Man, there's no way. Prisoner of Azkaban is my favorite movie, dude. It's so awesome.
That scene is way better than in the book. And then, to wrap up our last scene, which is way better in the book. Well, actually, not in the book. Oh, I made a slip here.
In the movie, it's way better. I'm so used to saying wow. In the book, I prefer in the book. Wow. In the book, it's way better that it just came out automatically. In the movie, it's way better.
It's the scene where Lupin says goodbye, I think. It's not that different, actually. It's pretty different, right? There's Dumbledore in the book and some lines that Lupin says in the movie. It's Dumbledore who says them in the scene, right? In the book. But, you know, I like the emptiness that the scene gives me. You can say I'm crazy. I like the emptiness, the sadness that the scene gives me. It's sad to see Lupin saying goodbye there, him packing his bags.
But the scene's aesthetics are beautiful and convey a sense of emptiness. We feel...
Again, I think they really got it right in this movie, making us feel what Harry is feeling. For example, Harry feels like it was all for nothing, right? In this scene, at least for me, it feels like it was all for nothing. Then Lupin leaves, and it feels unfair. Lupin shouldn't have to go. So, the scene conveys that much more than in the book. I mean, in the book, it does in a way, but in the movie, it's much more intense. That's why I really like this scene and how Lupin talks.
Since I'm no longer your teacher, I don't feel guilty giving you this. He says, mischief managed. The Marauder's map closes, and he just walks away. That's great cinema.
I love this scene, and for me, it's better in the movie than in the book, which is a bit more complete. There's Dumbledore there talking, right? About Harry's connection with Pettigrew, that he saved his life. That's important later on, right? In the book, it shows up in Deathly Hallows, but the line that Lupin says, right, about it making all the difference in the world, is actually said by Dumbledore in the book. But I really like how it happens in the movie. The whole aesthetic of the scene and everything, the scene is moving, it leaves me with this emptiness, you know?
It's really like the end of a movie. I think it's awesome.
And then comes the firebolt scene, which brings some joy, right? The way the movie ends there. But that's it.
Here are the scenes from Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban that I think are better in the movie than the book.
Do you agree? Do you disagree with any of them? Let me know down below which scene you think is better that I didn't mention here.
Feel free to comment. This section is for your opinions. Oh, my wand got stuck here.
Look, it's been a while since I finished a video with the wand, right? I stopped using it. It's been here on the side for a long time, just collecting dust. Poor thing.
See you next episode of The Leaky Cauldron. Until then, mischief managed.